Hi, thank you all for joining us tonight in this wonderful conversation from the streets to the pulpit. My name is Angel Garcia and I'll be your moderator tonight. I am the VIP Social Services Manager for the Violence Intervention Program. Tonight we are joined by some great speakers who will be discussing their time from going through the criminal justice system and what they are currently doing now to help our community. We also have some APD officers with us who all work in the downtown area. Hence Williams, Connor Coleman, and Sergeant Matt Tinney. And we have Chief Harold Medina here with us today. And Chief, I'd like to send it over to you to talk about why you wanted to host this little convo here.
Thank you, Angel. Our guest speakers have come a long way. They've lived a life where sometimes they were in trouble and they were incarcerated, but they've made that change in their life. And when we talk about drawing that line in the sand where sometimes we need individuals to stay in jail, we recognize that there are other individuals who are willing to change their lives, and we want these individuals to be successful. And we wanted to tell some of the success, but not only how they've succeeded, but how they're also helping others change their lives and improve themselves. I think it's important that one of the things that I've learned while working with some of these individuals is the fact that one compassionate officer, they've said, changed their lives. Somebody who sat down and spoke to them as humans and told them what they were doing wrong and how they needed to get out of that lifestyle, combined with incarceration, changed their lives to where they changed to where they are at today. So I want the community to know that there are a lot of successful people who navigate their way out of the criminal justice system. And although we're an advocate for ensuring that people are held accountable and that we continue to reduce crime rates, the ultimate truth is this: we cannot incarcerate every single criminal. There's no way, and it's not the right thing to do. It's that matter of drawing that line in the sand when somebody should stay incarcerated and working with others to improve their lives. And today we're going to hear some fascinating stories. Thank you. Back to you, Angel.
Thank you, Chief. And you're absolutely correct. One positive interaction could have a deep impact on somebody's life. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker today, Pastor Chris Cleveland. He's the president of Under His Construction and the founder of New Path Ministries of New Mexico's Men's Discipleship Program. Pastor, why don't you tell us who your contractor is?
Thank you, Angel. I appreciate that. I'm not sure what my contractor is, but my, okay, he's talking about God. So through 44 arrests here in this city, I was born and raised here. So it wasn't until God got a hold of my life and the police officers that had a lot to do with it those 44 times, and some of them very compassionate. And so it was that after that God transformed my life through a little bit of time of incarceration. My incarceration was done in maximum security because I also was in the corrections department for several years, as well as private security, and I was a bail bondsman and bounty hunter. So I got to see the maximum security of New Mexico.
And
go ahead.
And how what are you currently doing now? Like, what's your passion? What drives you to do what the work? I mean, obviously your past experience, but what are you doing now to give back to the community?
Well, thank you, Angel, for that question, because it's so important that when God transforms your life, the power of Christ that lives in you, and I always tell the people that I'm working with that it's no longer me that's working, it's Christ that lives in me. And it gives me a power to be able to sustain some of the things that's going on in the city. Currently, I'm the vice president of Under His Construction, which operates a 25-bed recovery center, discipleship center, that we've been in operation for 15 years. We support that through 10 charity enterprises that we put people to work. We have a thrift store in the International District that gives out more than we sell, but and sometimes we know about it, sometimes not. But and then we have various other charity enterprises such as moving, landscaping, remodeling, and all of that goes into the support the mission of Under His Construction.
And how fulfilling is it for you to encounter somebody you've encountered in your past work, like in the detention center, to now see them in the community actually doing the work themselves? And that would be a good segue into Renee after.
Excuse me.
Take your time.
It's an amazing thing to see Renee. I told you guys, I've known Renee for 25, 30 years, and we've been down every road together, from cop to con almost, as a corrections officer and her in the juvenile detention center, to using and stealing cars together on the street, and now doing what we do together in the city. With Tomas, the same thing. Tomas was a graduate of Under His Construction. Renee is as well, but she didn't get a certificate yet. But we've got senior pastors in other states, in Michigan, in Indiana, that have come through after 12 years of heroin addiction and currently leading churches. Just so many men, and sometimes this is a very daunting task, as I'm sure the police officer's task is as well. I know that I gave them a little bit of trouble in my days, but to be the man that I am today, we took 17 men bowling the other night for a bachelor party for a man who's been in the program for 3 years, and he's marrying a woman that's been in the program for 3 years. And so setting them up for success and helping them to get housing, helping them to furnish their house and their car, and setting them up for life. And that's, for me, I get to see something that most people don't get to see. In our church at New Beginnings with Pastor Mansfield, I used to do security all 3 sessions of the services, and to stand there and see the men who have been in the program, but then their moms, their dads, their aunts, their uncles, the whole left side of the church, because I made them all sit at the left. The whole left side of the church is generally people who have graduated, and maybe not graduated, but they got a control of their life, and now their mothers, their aunts, their uncles are attending church as well. So I feel like it says in the Bible in Proverbs 11:25, those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. And so I know that sometimes as a police officer, that it gets tough going home at night seeing the things that you see, but we hope that this refreshes you as well. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. That was beautiful. Renee.
Oh, I gotta follow the pastor now. So I started breaking the law, of course. My mom moved us into the International District when I was in grade school, in 3rd grade, as a matter of fact. She divorced an abusive husband. He wasn't my father, but so single mom, Chico in Virginia. You know, she got into drugs, and I was left to fend for myself. You know, and I explored the neighborhood, and so I became street famous, I guess, if you would. I made a name for myself. I was bad. I fought, and then before you know it, somebody turned me on to crack, and so that was pretty powerful. I would ditch school and I wouldn't go, and I just remember, my first arrest. I was 12 years old. I was addicted to crack already, so I had a really rough start, but I got really good at treatment centers. The juvenile justice system tried. The Judge Michael Martinez, I'll never forget, he was my judge from when I was 12 till when I was 18. And he flew me on a charter plane to, Las Cruces. He put me in Farmington. He sent me everywhere. I did a couple of bids in the girls' school. But when I turned 18, so I got inside the juvenile justice system. I got my GED. I scored so high, because I was always really smart, but I scored so high that they gave me a scholarship from the Macomb Foundation. And so when that happened, I went into criminal justice at CNM, or TVI, formerly it was TVI then. But I still had that monkey on my back, right? I still had that addiction to crack, and I didn't really understand it as addiction then. Still very young, 18 years old, and I relapsed coming home from school one day, and I just remember when I would relapse, like, and that's where my justice involvement came, because when I would, of course, smoke crack, I'd be on the streets stealing cars. And, as a woman on the streets, you're either going to use your body for a hustle, or you're going to, steal cars. And back then it was Coke machines and telephones. We still had quarters. So it's been a while. So, yeah, I probably wouldn't make it now. No, just kidding. But, yeah, so, at 18 years old, I did it again. I messed up and got caught with a stolen vehicle. And so throughout my life, I've done 23 years New Mexico Women's Correctional Facility. That was after juvie. But corrections saved my life. It saved my teeth. It saved my life. So I have 11 increments. I'm a reentry guru, right? Like, talk about a resume. Like, I've been to every reentry spot in the city. And, I got really good at the first 90 days, because I never made it past 90 days. So, but I remember a time when I had graduated to meth, and I was doing meth, and I remember a sting operation. They came in masks, guns, dogs, and I was at a meth house, and I remember them separating everybody into segments or whatever so they could talk or wait and process. And I remember feeling the lowest of the low, about 24, 25 years old, if that, maybe 23. And, out on probation, parole, whatever. So I was definitely going back. And, but I remember the shame that I felt, the guilt. But I remember the officer looking at me and telling me, you're like a flower in an onion patch. He was just staring at me the whole time, like, and I could feel him, like, but not like in a weird way. He was just contemplating in his head, like, what's this young girl doing amongst this scene? And I remember him saying, you're like a flower in an onion patch. What are you doing? He was like, you could be anything you want to be. You could go anywhere you want to go, and this is where you are right now. And so I remember that drive in the back seat of his car, what he had said resonating with me. And, I carried that with me for multiple years afterwards. But, it made a real big impact on me. I mean, even though, again, 11 incarcerations, I never made it past 90 days until 2007, when I finally, again, I was at a halfway house. One of my managers at the halfway house asked me to score for them. I had 2 jobs as a waitress. I was doing fine. And I drove, it was a sting operation. I was scared. I drove through the building. And anyway, needless to say, but my daughter was one day in my womb at that moment. I was lucky that I made it through that. It was pretty, aggressive interaction. But it was then, as my daughter, they put me back in my cell. Everybody welcomed me at the prison. And it was then when my daughter began to grow in my womb that I began to call on the name of the Lord Jesus. And, I made a deal with God, because inside I was, dealing tobacco. I was running game. I was doing my thing. And it was a lifestyle. So, I got on my knees. I'll never forget, as she was moving around in my belly. And I got on my knees and I said, God, like, if you let me be her mom, I will serve you. I'll serve you. I'll stop doing this. I'll change my life around, And, I'll never forget, God showed up in such a mighty way. I should have, I was already multiple times in. I was facing, the new charge on top of the probation and parole violation. But the judge, I only got 3 years, and so I had my baby. handcuffed or shackled to a bed before it was taken out. So I was one of the last ones to do that. And I'll never forget walking back into the prison with an empty belly and a heartbreak. My heart was broken. But I took that opportunity. I got my degree inside. UNM Project ECHO came in and taught me how to train my peers on communicable diseases. And so I ran with that. And that's where I discovered addiction as a disease. And man, and that's all she wrote from there, basically.
And can you please tell us what are you currently doing now? How has your experience served you to help others in your shoes?
Well, it's phenomenal. So the peer mentor, recovery coach, been there, done that. It's such a powerful dynamic right now. Not only submitted my life to Christ, but I have that peer factor, right? I'm trained, in peer education. I'm a certified peer support worker, a certified community health worker. And with that dynamic alone, I got it. So I've only been out 2 years and 8 months. And so when I got out this time, totally focused on God, ready to do this thing. I was housing displaced populations. That's my passion. My mom's homeless now, and I'm just real good with the displaced population and with women. And anyway, as I was working as a Pathways Navigator for UNM, 3 months out of prison, I met a property manager, filled up every property he has in Albuquerque, New Mexico with all the, hard-to-house populations. He loves me. I'm his favorite. But he told me one day, Renee, how would you like, meet me over here on Rio Grande and I-40. And so we went. He was like, I have something I want to show you. And I got there, and it's a 3-bedroom house. And he tells me, how would you like to make this a halfway house? I was like, yeah, I'll make that a half. I could do that. So that's how Frontline Resurrection Life Recovery Home was born. We now house women in transition and life recovery, and we help them rebuild their lives. And so, yeah, I do that amongst many other things. God has restored my life beyond what I could ever imagine, beyond whatever I could ever fathom. Like, I'm sitting at this table right now, recovered, restored. I have 5 years of recovery from methamphetamines and crack cocaine. 23 years. I mean, I'm out. I'm strong. Bought our first house. Have all my children back. I have, a great job, great family. So God has definitely restored my life.
That's awesome. Thank you, Renee.
You're welcome.
Now let's hear from Tomas.
So, I was brought up pretty good family. It's just that my family partied a lot. They drank a lot. My dad smoked weed, so I got comfortable in that kind of lifestyle to where I took it to overboard, to where I stopped going to school. I started selling drugs. Till my life started going into a downward spiral till I was going in and out of jail. 18 incarcerations I had, and the last one was the one that saved my life. And I'll come to that here in a second. It was because of the APD officers. It was because of the peace officers here in Albuquerque that I'm alive today. But anyways, when I got into my addiction, I got so bad to the point where I was laying out there in the middle of a field out there by Cibola High School. And I looked like a bag of trash. Somebody saw me in the middle of January. Thank God for that couple or whoever had seen me out there, because they called APD and they said that we have a guy out here that's going to freeze to death. So they showed up, and when they showed up, I was so drunk that I don't even remember how I got there, and I had a pellet gun on me inside my coat. And the APD officers were all trying to help me out, and I'm in this drunk blackoutness that actually the enemy had me set up, the devil had me set up for death, because I was yelling at the APD officers, go to hell, and cussing at them. And at the same time, I pulled this pellet gun out, and I flagged one of the officers, but in the grace of God, it dropped out of my hand to where they apprehended it, and they took me into the police car. Well, in this time, I came back out of the blackout, and I was in the back of the police officer's car, and I told him, I was, you guys taking me to Madison? Oh, you're lucky you're alive. And he pulls up the pellet gun in a plastic bag, and he takes me to, he's like, we're booking you. You know what I mean? So anyways, I get there, and I get out right away. They get me out, and I was all on the Librium. I wanted to stay in there to get better. Anyways, I got into Expect a Miracle. It's a men's home here in Albuquerque, ran by Pastor Pedro, and man, that changed my life. I finally grew up. I finally became a man when I was introduced to Christ and started to get discipled and become a leader. And God started showing me how to be a man. Pretty much that's how it was. All my life, all I wanted to do was party, party, party. That's all it was about. Until I finally figured out that there was more to life than just partying and living the way that the world has to offer. So I started getting discipled in Expect a Miracle. I was the first to graduate that program. I stayed there for about 14 months. I got out of Expect a Miracle, and I started working with God's Warehouse with Pastor Chuck. And I lived with Pastor Chuck for about a year, and I handled everything at God's Warehouse. I learned how to minister to the men and women out there that are hurting. There's so many people out there that are hurting, and really all they want is a hug. I mean, that's all they want is love. It's just to show them love. And God blessed me with that gift to where I was able to just show love to these people and help them get into the men's home and show them that there's a way that I've been where you're at, because I was homeless for 3 years. So I know what they're going through, and so I would speak to life into their lives. And that's when I met my wife, was at God's Warehouse, and we got married, and you know, we went on our little episode. I mean, because God does things for a reason. He does everything in order for a reason. But me and my wife, we got together, we stepped before God. So, you know what I mean? We didn't even know each other, but we got married because that's the thing to do. I mean, when you're walking with the Lord, you have to get married. So, anyways, we went on our little route. We found out who each other was, and I started to drink again, because I wasn't built on rock yet. I wasn't strong enough yet, but I started drinking, and we went on our episode. She went back to prison. I went back onto the streets, and it was the awfulest thing. It was so awful because I knew the truth. I knew the truth, and I was out there with all the people getting high, and I kept telling everyone, I was like, you know what? If Jesus were to come right now, if I was to die right now, it'd be worse for me, because I know the truth, and I'm out here with you guys, and I should be bringing you into the homes. I should be taking you to bringing you to Christ, not out here promoting this. So finally, God, He gave me the opportunity to come back into UHC. My wife was in there praying for me, so everything stopped. The connection stopped. Everything stopped. I got chased off the streets, and thank God into Pastor Chris Cleveland's program, and I stayed there for 16 months. I graduated. I did everything Pastor told me. I surrendered. I was going to do what God had called me to do. My wife got out of prison. We got our apartment. We both had jobs. I started working at New Beginnings Church under Pastor Richard Mansfield, and I've been there ever since. I'm a lay counselor there now. In the new year, starting in January, I'm going to start taking a leadership program where I'll be ordained minister and start doing what God has called me to do. So my whole purpose in life and going through what I went through is to bring me to this point today, so that I could help these people out here that society has pretty much given up on, because society gave up on me. But because God has given me another chance, I'm going to do everything I can to help the peace officers. And that's what I call you guys, our peace officers, because you bring peace to this world that is so corrupted. So that's pretty much my story.
Thank you, Tomas. So now, let's hear from the other side. For you guys here, being peace officers, like hearing 3 successes, or 4, because I'm an ex-felon myself. Like, does that bring you guys hope? Like in the line of work you guys do? Let's get this conversation rolling. Come on.
So I'm Connor Coleman. I had been with the department for about 4 years, 3 of which have been working downtown. Prior to that, I actually started my career in education within the New Mexico State Corrections Department. So I worked up at the South primarily, and the MRF and at PNM, which I think means something to some of the folks here, and a lot of times people don't know what I'm talking about, but I think you guys do. And from there, I went over to probation and parole, so worked there for a few years prior to coming here. And one thing that I've learned is that, and one thing I've been extremely grateful to have the experience in is kind of cultivating relationships and that sort of like continuity of service and really getting to know people. And when you get to know them, that empathy comes extremely easily. One thing I want to share is I'm extremely grateful to the three of you, four of you, for sharing your stories, because there are times that when you work as a police officer, you deal with a certain amount of loss of a sense of purpose. You know, sometimes we joke about it, it's, you know, it's like Groundhog's Day. Sometimes you're doing the same thing every single day, and it's very easy to get disheartened and feel like certain institutions that we might work within and work with are failing us. But I think really what it is when you do a good job, sometimes you just don't hear anything at all because you don't see that person again, or that, you know, that individual, their circumstances in life kind of improved, or they were able to move on from that period of acute crisis or even extended period of chronic crisis that they were in. So just to hear you guys share that and see something that's like truly, truly meaningful, I'm very grateful to all of you guys. So thank you very much.
Can I?
That's the whole idea.
So, thank you, Officer Coleman. Can I just tell you that, so as you're speaking, you know, a tool. So God used law enforcement as a tool to save my life. So the West Side murders, all the girls so that was my cohort. That was my, you know, I hung with them. Like, you know, I didn't work the streets with them, but I hung with them. Like, I'd go with them to protect them, to back them up. I mean, I was a little wild on the street. Like, I would fight. And I have to tell you that I could have been there one night watching one of them getting their back. But because, you know, I was, as a tool, you know, law enforcement, God used them as a tool to get me. And again, the correctional system saved my life, my teeth, my face, you know, my mind. My mom walks around like oblivious, you know, from the methamphetamine-induced schizophrenia. You know what I mean? So as a tool, you know, I just had to say that.
Thank you.
You know, one thing I want to cover is just how law enforcement has changed and what a law enforcement officer is in 2021 as opposed to 1995 when I started. And I think it's important to recognize that we had to open our door to conversations and to working with all segments of society. And our ambassador program is based off of this, that we want to reach segments of society where we always didn't have strong relationships. But I promise you this, in 1995, unfortunately, I don't think that a first-year patrol officer, Harold Medina, would have sat down in a group like this and seen a value and heard stories and had the stories have an impact on him. And that is the department we're trying to build, where we have individuals who are willing to listen, work with others, and hear their story. And for you guys, it was, you know, a higher being, God, who you guys turned to make changes. And these changes could come in a variety of ways for different people. It could be their kids. It could be, you know, a community group that they're working with. And I just hope that others out there who need help and families who need help know that there's always places to reach out for resources. And I don't know if you could just cover a little bit of, like, if somebody needed help, how they could reach some of your organizations and get help from you guys.
That's really great, Chief. I was around in 1995, and I probably wouldn't have sat down with you then either. It wasn't my first year so it's really a great question about currently on the streets. We just heard Angel tell us earlier about having to use 3 hits of Narcan to bring somebody back out of what's currently going on every city or every corner of our city. It's not just the what do you call the district? What is it? International district. It was the old war zone for me, guys. So, but it's really bad, and so we're full all the time. Our program, we work with all 5. There's 5 faith-based programs that I work with, and can I mention them? There's
Sure.
Teen Challenge, which he's also a recovering addict, and a great program. Expect a Miracle, Steel Bridge, and U-Turn for Christ. We also join in hands with Joy Junction. So we all kind of joined hands, and it's like what Tomas said about, he was in Expect a Miracle. He finished there. He got some great training there, and then he finished that training with us. And so we worked together that way, and now there's really kind of a full circle coming, that now for me to sit here on this panel working with the police department with you instead of against you just joys my heart, because yes, it is a God-filled hole in my heart now that I'm no longer on crack cocaine. The 69 felonies landed me up at I started in the south and graduated up to the north, up to level 6, where I did time with police officers, judges, corrections officers, because we're not immune. None of us are immune to falling to this addiction. And I was there. And so with Under His Construction, we scan anybody's welcome. We take men, we're probation and parole approved. We take men transitioning from probation or parole. We take men from God's warehouse, straight out of homelessness. We take people that are referred through the church. We take anybody that's has a heart that wants to be transformed. And so at 25 beds, and I take about 15 to 20 calls a day and applications a day. And so it's really hard to turn a lot of those away. I try to help what we can, but we're very limited as well.
Yeah.
So you can reach us through underhisconstruction.org is our website to reach Under His Construction.
And pretty much we make sure that they get somewhere, no matter what. The Frontline beds are full. Under His Construction's beds are full. We get Victory Outreach, Expect a Miracle, U-Turn for Christ, Teen Challenge, one day at a time.
Yeah.
These are all faith-based ministries that we send them. And then if they don't want to hear about Jesus and they just want NACA, then we got Hoffman Hall that we send them to. So there's always a place to send these men and women to. And we never leave them back out to the streets. That when they come into our home, we make sure that they get into another program. We do not send them back to the streets. We make sure to keep discipling them and leading them, because I would hate to see somebody that crossed my path, that God gave me the ability to help, and let them go back into the streets.
Yeah, and that is awesome. So, you want to? So I was just gonna say, I joined the three of you in the sentiment and thanking you guys for the willingness to sit here with us, and I wanted to go to Hans as an officer that works with the ambassador program. What are you seeing out there? Like, what are you trying to do out there with the community? And
well, my name's Hans Williams, and I've been with the department for 3 years now. Connor and I actually came on together in 2017. Prior to that, 4 years? downtown for 3 years. I was a probation officer, and prior to that, I was a social worker. And prior to that, you kind of alluded to the other side, I think, when you turned it over to us. And I never looked at it like that. My brother has been in and out of prison his entire life. I have aunts and uncles that work the streets. I had a cousin who ran dope across the border for years. And these are my family members.
yeah,
These are my friends. I think we all have somebody in our lives that's done something like this. So I've never really looked at it as somebody who's different. I think you make a different choice. We all do. We all made different choices. As far as the ambassador program goes, it's just another opportunity. Yeah, I went downtown because I wanted to work directly with people. I wanted to be out of a car. I wanted to be on my feet. I wanted to be having conversations with people. And the ambassador program just gives me another opportunity to do that. But I think as a police officer, anywhere you're at in this city, we can all work together. I can work with anybody who has an addiction problem. or feels that they need to commit crimes to feed their addiction. And the chief alluded to other programs or opportunities or ideas that we can't essentially arrest our way out of addiction, right? We all know that would never happen. But I think when officers get the opportunity to sit down with individuals who have experienced the lifestyles that some of you did or had at one point, you start to realize you're human too. I think it's just really easy to forget, because right now what I'm doing, I'm just arresting you and I'm taking you to jail, and I never have to deal with you or look at you again. But once I have to do that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, I'm like, wow, there's something. What else can I do to help this person? And if I'm not thinking that way as a police officer, I probably shouldn't be here. So I really appreciate all of you sticking it out and making it to the point that we can all sit down and have a conversation. But I can tell you right now, like, I really need your help downtown, right? Like, I know there's other areas you could go to, but if you could just come downtown for a couple of months and let's work together. Don't worry about the southeast. Don't worry about the northeast. It's downtown right now. I really appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, I just want to just touch up a little bit what Hens was talking about, where you never really know, and how everybody has family, and we all have family who go through this. You know, I met Tomas for luncheon at the chief's office, and Tomas went on his way, and a few months later I was at a funeral in Taos for a friend of mine, and I look across the patio, and me and Tomas realized that he actually grew up with some of my closest friends that I knew, and in a way it was like, man, his family's like my family. I mean, we're that close, and you know, you just never know where you're going to have those relationships. And I have family that's on one side of the law, and I have family that's on the other side of the law. But one thing I've always said is I love my family on the other side of the law. It's just I want to get them help, and we got to find everybody the resources they need.
Yeah.
Can I just say that, so navigation, right? So Chris spoke about it, you know, you spoke about it, Tomas. So no matter what, you know, religion or, you know, what preferences or where you come from, what I've learned is so what I do for homework is I master resources in the city of Albuquerque and the state of New Mexico, because if I get the opportunity to do an intervention, and then you don't want anything you have here, or you've been through all of these systems, guess where I'm going to send you? I'm going to send you to Las Cruces, where I have a certified peer support worker, where I can, you know, or I'll send you to Santa Fe, or we'll send, and we have to. And I think the most powerful thing is when we're doing an intervention, no matter in what capacity, where I look them in the eyes and I say, man, you got some amazing skills. You got a powerful story, and you know what? What can we do to get you up and on your feet so you can use that to help everyone out? Man, that's so powerful, right? And we get more opportunities to intervene in the lives of these individuals that way, by being ready and willing. And so, like, I'll go to the West Side Shelter and I'll spend a few hours. I'll go to Joy Junction. I'll go to this woman's home, and I want to feel where I'm sending people. I want to know, when I send someone, what's it going to be like for them? Is it going to be infested? Is it going to be filthy? Because if it is, I don't want to send them there. And so, yeah, you know, it's very important that we surround, and then we know where we're sending them to. You know, sometimes I've given phone numbers that were given to me on a pamphlet. Don't do that without calling it, because it'd be like, you know, dee. And I was like, come on, really? I gave that to somebody. So, you know, just being, you know, wrap around, like really getting it down. That's what I strive for now.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
Sergeant Tidney, we haven't heard from you. Any thoughts?
I don't know if you want to hear from me. My name is Matt Tinney. I know that you all and we've all been using some acronyms, so in case anyone is looking online for resources, I know the city's website, that's cavq.gov,
Yes.
has resources. So does 211.org and shareinm.org.
Yes.
These are all different ones that have resources if you're looking. Thank you guys again, like everyone said, for sharing your stories and being so open about recovery, because I know it's recovery. I mean, people fall out of it, and you guys have shared your stories on it. One of the things that I did notice just from hearing you guys, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is something we hear a lot when we're meeting with people, is that it seems like their social networks, their family has kind of almost abandoned them or kind of lost contacts. So they don't have that person that's kind of reaching out to them or checking on them. And so unfortunately, or fortunate, however you want to look at it, it is the police department. So we're the ones that get called, like, we're worried about someone out in the middle of the mesa. Or we're worried about this person that's going into a house because they look young and out of place there. It's not that a neighbor is concerned and feels that they can go and talk to somebody. But we become their advocates on the street. And so we try our best. But if someone is listening and they're like, oh, I've always wanted to check on my neighbor that I'm concerned about, or check on my brother who I think is getting into addiction, but I just don't know what to do, so I wait to call police. Do you guys have tips for the community or someone that is concerned on how they would, you know, how you would have felt okay with bringing it up, as opposed to calling law enforcement? Or any kind of feedback on that?
Pretty much, it comes to the point, like when people are like that we pray for them, that they get stopped before their life gets taken from them. Because some people, it takes you guys to stop them, for them to get their lives together. Because they're gonna keep going until they're dead. They're on a suicide mission. And that's what it is. You know, I could pour into somebody all day long downtown. We used to go down there and minister all the time. But if they don't want it, they won't come. I mean, so all we can do is love on them, pray for them, and if they don't want, pray for them from a distance. But the most thing is to love on them and pray that they get stopped. They get stopped and they get sober up, and God can speak to them. Because when you're high off methamphetamines, you can't hear nothing but the devil. Still, rob, take, fornicate. That's all that drug does out there. And now the fentanyl's out there, so we're fighting a spiritual war, if you look at the sense, against unseen spiritual demons out there downtown that are tearing up our community. So it takes a peace officer to stop them in their tracks. You know what I mean? And that's love. Bring them in with love. Because I had police officers that would arrest me, and they came with love. You know what I mean? They ministered to me. They took me into prison. I had their occasional one that would beat me down or whatever, but you know what I mean? I probably deserved it at that time. But at the same time, if it wasn't for the peace officers that saved my life, not shooting me when I pulled out a pellet gun on them, I wouldn't be here today. So we have to look at it like that. We have to look at it. I pray my brother gets stopped. I pray that he stops himself before he overdoses, that he gets put in jail before he dies. Because right now, jail is sometimes the only thing that's going to save their lives. And there's a lot of people out there that won't stop until they get put in jail.
Another thing is, you know, we have NMCAL. So New Mexico, the peer support in New Mexico, we're not at the bottom of the list. We are actually, throughout the states, New Mexico's peer support through the Office of Peer Recovery and Engagement from the Behavioral Health Services Division in Santa Fe, we are actually at close to the top of the list as far as our program and the number of peers that we're certifying in recovery. You have to have 3 years. So you can call NMCAL. I mean, and you know, we get calls where moms, grandmas, sisters, uncles, aunts will be like, you know, I know my son's on drugs. Will you reach out? This is his number. We get those all the time. And we do. We'll go engage with them. High as a kite, and take them to lunch, take them to church, just anything that they'll receive. Because when a peer engages with a peer, something happens. There's a powerful. So yeah, as far as like a number or anything, you know, again, we'll share our numbers. I mean, we do that all the time. We do tailored interventions all the time for families.
If I might, real quick. Excuse me. So, in the Bible, it says, don't get tired of doing good. And to sit across from Renee and hear Renee, because I've known Renee for many, many years, and to sit and hear her today and work with her today and with Tomas. But Renee has become one of the greatest resource people in the state of New Mexico. And so it took me, it took you, it took the state, it took the corrections department, it took an act of God to stop this girl. But we have to not get tired of doing good. And so that's where it's hard. I know that protection is one thing. You have to protect yourself against that evil manner, but continue doing good, and it produces a peaceable fruit. And so with me, 44 arrests, usually all I have to say to people is, I was arrested 44 times and I'm a pastor now. And that's the power of God that transformed my life. And so I don't have to go into all of those things that I did, because it speaks for itself. And now that I have a 25-bed recovery center, and I go look at Renee, look at Tomas, look at, and they go, oh, hey, that can happen to me? It sure can. And so don't get tired of doing good, and send them to our resources. When you said something about the continuing of having resources, and when God put on my heart while I was in prison, he said to me that to continue a pursuit of raising up a ministry, because while you're in maximum security, you get 3 phone calls a week, and I got a list of transitional living programs to apply to, and so I'd get my 3 phone calls and 3 letters a week, and you get the letters back, return to sender, and the phone calls that beep, 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 like Renee said. And it's because so many ministries start and then they fall because they lose funding, or they fall into sin and get arrested themselves. And so God built this organization based on our charity enterprises. I teach a man, he needs to go to work. And so that's the very first thing that we do is, one, get a guy detoxed, and then put him to work, and then start with the discipleship and teaching a person, read your Bible every day. Greg Griego was my senior pastor, and I don't know if you remember Greg Griego, but he was the pastor that was shot, him and his 5 siblings, by their son Nehemiah. He was my senior pastor in God's Pod back in 2002. And he was the one that set me straight. And so he carried on by telling me, read my Bible every day. Have a relationship, and you mentioned it, and you mentioned it. I believe all 3 of you mentioned relationship. And relationship, whether it's, and usually the blue and the cop and the con, what a great relationship. What a great thing to start. And so I pray that we would continue to cultivate this relationship, because this city is desperately in need of something. And God has empowered us with this. Amen?
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. So
Are we doing okay on time, Angel?
we got about 10 minutes left.
I
so
think-
I
all right.
wanted you guys to get your last words in.
Well, my last word is, it's really kind of a question. Renee, you had shared the resource about peer support, and kind of using your lived experience and being, I think it's extremely relatable to a lot of the individuals that are struggling with the issues that you guys have historically, and a lot of the folks that we are working with every day are currently dealing with. And I think, myself, Hens, Sergeant Tinney, I think we lack certain lived experience, and maybe we have the ability to empathize, but we don't know, because we haven't been there.
Right.
We've worked with people there, we've had loved ones there, but a lot of us, we really haven't been there. Is there anything that you could suggest, or a way of communicating that you think might help us be able to provide that support and be able to communicate in a way, even if we're not peers in that sense?
Compassion always goes a long way. I'll never forget all the officers that had compassion, and I'll never forget the ones who did not and made me feel like this. And that's a big, powerful play, because even if you don't arrest someone and put them in the back of the car, the words that you speak into that individual, they will carry with them. One thing I just want to say is that, for most of us, addiction's not a party. Shoving a needle in my arm and pushing all that liquid in there, it's not a party, it's bondage, and it's slavery, and it's hell. It's like having an invisible hand slammed around your throat and pin you against the wall and make you stay until it's over. But without it, it's unbearable. So it's a horrible place to be. So keep that in mind. It's not a party. And so the other thing I would like to say is, you know, they're putting peers in probation and parole a little bit. They're putting peers in every, you know, in violence intervention. They're putting peers. It's very powerful. You know, if we were, you know, I know that in the north in Las Vegas that they have peers. They're starting to plug them in, you know, with judges and with public defenders and putting peers as many places as we possibly can. So that way you do have a direct Renee, or, you know, you do have a direct contact because you have them at the station, or you're beginning a pilot program like that, because then they build and we all come together all the time. Peers, we got to keep CEUs, so we train together in cultural humility and all kinds of things, Narcan, and that. You know, you got to have a lot of CEUs to keep your peers. It's a certification. A credential is what it is. So, you know, really sitting at the table where you guys talk about it and really getting you guys some peers in there with lived experience. That way you begin to look and kind of talk with them and know how we move, talk, and create, you know. And so it's a very powerful thing, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely those things,
Yeah.
I would say.
Thank
you very much.
I'm very fortunate to be able to work alongside Renee right now. And every time we go out on an intervention, I tell people that people with lived experience, their experience is invaluable in the work that we're doing. So I tell them, look, me and Renee, we're building an army right now. So if it's up to us, in 5 years, we'll be #1 for peer support.
That's right.
And we could probably have a peer support worker riding along with APD, you know, snapping people out of it out there. But, and with the compassion thing that she said too, I remember this one officer was taking me to LA County, and he's like, hey man, who's your favorite rapper? So Tupac. Boom, he put it the whole way we were going to county jail. And that always stuck with me, you know, because that little compassion. He's like, yeah, you're going to be gone for a few years, so who's your favorite rapper? Yeah, but hey. So any last remarks, words? We have a few minutes left. Any questions you guys might have?
I just want to again thank you guys for it, because like you guys mentioned, we don't see the end results, and like Connor had mentioned before, and so it does really help to drive home the fact that we as police officers do have the opportunity to actually change someone's life and to change their world, and I'm thankful for that, having that opportunity as a police officer. And I know right now the profession's kind of in a changing point, and it's not so much the hot profession to be in anymore. But I know if anyone is listening and they're on the fence, it is a great profession where you get to meet people where they are in the community and actually help them as opposed to an office setting. So thank you guys for that and helping reignite the fire in me. And I've been on as a police officer since 2006. So it's nice to see these positive stories.
And I would just like to thank you guys, because trust me, for us four being able to sit here with you four, it's healing for us. You know, it's like coming full circle. We were here, now we're here, you know, together. So thank you guys for giving us this opportunity.
Can I for 1 minute? One more minute.
I'm gonna time you.
There's a everybody always does. Pastors preach and teach. That's what we do. But anyway, Prison Fellowship is an international organization that currently has a seminary program in the Hobbs prison. And they've been in it now 7 years and have graduated over 700 men who have now a associate's degree in theology, and just recently graduated 31 men with bachelors in theology. And so there's some things changing, and I'm part of that fellowship, and we're going into prisons and trying to make it better for the street. And so the one other ministry that I didn't mention was Conviction Ministry, and he does an amazing job, Eddie B., who goes into the prisons and does a great job ministering with song, but also has a discipleship center here in Albuquerque as well. Thank you for your time, Angel, and Chief.
You know, I just want to tell everybody thank you for being here this evening and taking time out. I want to thank everybody who's watching. And there's 2 points I want to make is number one, the Mayor's Metro Crime Initiative talks about the need for additional resources for programs that help people get their life back on track. And I think it's imperative, and I hope if we have anybody in the legislature watching that they recognize that these programs need funding, and we have to fund these programs as a community and as a state to make sure that everybody has somewhere to go. These programs come in different faces, they come in different forms. It could be faith-based, like I said, it could be community-based. There's so many different programs, and I think it's not a matter that we don't have enough programs, it's a matter that we have to fund enough programs. And I hope that our state could devote the resources necessary to this. The second thing is 27 years and I still love this job every day, no matter how difficult it may get, and so the officers. The Albuquerque Police Department is continually looking for new officers. So if you're somebody out there in the community and you think this is a job, this is the direction our department is going, and we encourage you to apply for a job within the Albuquerque Police Department. We'd love to add another 100 officers next year, but we need the community support in doing so. We need you to be our advocates to go out there, and if you know somebody who'd be good, get them to apply.
Thank you, Chief, and thank all of you out there. Thank you guys for a wonderful conversation today. That's all the time we have. Thank you all out there on Facebook Live for joining us tonight, having this important conversation. We'll continue to hold more events like this in the future. And if you have any questions on this topic or any regarding any other issues or anything we discussed today, please send them to the APD questions email that you see on your screen, and we will make sure that somebody gets back to you at a later date. Have a great night, and thank you everybody for being here.
I now know how I know you. You did the schedule. So I